Welcome to Cryptic Chris. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and don't forget to follow me with those creeper peepers. 'Twas the day after Christmas, and all through the lighthouse not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. 3 men went missing on an island called Flannan. A mysterious disappearance happened when they should have been stranded. The story starts at a chapel owned by a saint on the island. While St. Flannan was on the island, he had mentioned a race of magical little people called Lisburden, who tormented them, making St. Flannan and his followers flee from the island they called the other country. People wouldn't even stay the night on the cursed island, only inhabited by sheep, until the Eilean Mor Lighthouse was built. In spite the island being supposedly cursed, known by the Northern Lighthouse Board, it was completed on December 7th, 1899. The Eilean Mor Lighthouse was manned by 4 men, 3 which stayed at the lighthouse, and 1 that would come to relieve the others. As a security measure, there was a wireless cosmopolitan streamers from a Captain Holman of the steamer Arctur on December 15th, 19,000. Reported the light was not shining. The CLS had neglected to pass the information on to the NLB, Northern Lighthouse Board, because of more pressing issues. The lighthouse was last inhabited on December 26th, 1900, by Captain James Harvey and the relief Joseph Moore. As the ship reached the landing platform, Captain Harvey was surprised not to see anyone waiting for their arrival. He blew his horn and sent up a flare to attract attention. There was no response. The 3 men on the island, principal keeper James Ducat. There was no response. The 3 men on the island, principal keeper James Ducat, William MacArthur, and Thomas Marshall, had mysteriously disappeared. Captain Harver had felt an ominous presence along the sea while on the island with reliever Joseph Moore. Moore had went to investigate, only finding that 2 of the 3 winter coats, which were needed, were on the rack. 1 was left. In the kitchen he found the half-eaten and partially rotten remains of a meal still on the table. Joseph also noticed an overturned chair. It was as though all 3 men had gotten up from their meal in a hurry, and the weirdest part was all 3 clocks had stopped at the exact same time. Yet, as we crowded through the door, we only saw a table spread for dinner, meat and cheese and bread, but all untouched, and no one there. As though when they sat down to eat, ere they could even taste, alarm had come, and they in haste had risen and left the bread and meat, for at the table had a chair lay tumble on the floor. Captain Harvey sent a telegram back to the Northern Lighthouse Board's headquarters in Edinburgh. He explained the situation and awaited word back about how to proceed. A few days later, the superintendent of the Lighthouse Board, Robert Moorhead, sailed for the island to investigate. Robert found that everything was just as the telegram described, and found something even more bizarre in the captain's logs. On December 12th, the second assistant keeper, Thomas Marshall, noted that they were being barraged by powerful winds. Marshall also noticed the principal keeper, James Ducat, had been very distant over the past few days, and that William MacArthur, the third assistant keeper, had been crying constantly. The news MacArthur had been crying was particularly disturbing to Moorhead, who knew him as a harder seafarer. If the storm had brought this man to tears, then it must have been one hell of a squall. However, although the logs reported storms on December 12th, 13th, and 14th, the actual weather reports for the area on those days was calm. The log's final entry was on December 15th. This bone-chilling log only said, "Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all." So what happened? Let's start with the first theory. Madness. The first theory says that they went mad from cabin fever or seclusion from the archaic. But the problem with this theory is that the men were switching off. This doesn't make this impossible, but a little far-fetched that all three men went mad at the same time. The second theory is madness from the demand of the job. At this day and age, there weren't a lot of machines and robots to do the job for you, relying on the men to do heavy lifting and using levers like ropes. This is also a bit of reach, but again, not impossible. The third theory is that there really was a storm. This is highly unlikely because the neighboring areas reported that the area was clear and sunny that day. However, the storm could have been localized, but why three men would have disappeared because of a local storm is a mystery. The fourth theory is that the storm had created a tidal wave, and as the men had went to batten down the supply, they were swept away by the storm and tidal waves. This one states that one of the men went out to tighten down supplies, whereas the other two heard a scream. The two men went out to see what the screams were about and were swept out to sea as well. The only problem with this is that there were two raincoats gone and three men, plus there was no signal from the lighthouse to the mainland, meaning not one of the two asked for help while this was going on. The fifth theory is simple but a little odd, and only two words: alien abduction. The sixth theory is that the men disappeared because of something supernatural. This was said because dinner was made but not touched, and the silverware being clean, plus a chair being knocked over. Did the men get attacked by angry spirits, the Lisburden, or little people, or something else entirely? Please put what you think in the comments below. And please be open-minded and respectful. Thank you.